Greetings and welcome to Beatles Stuffology, where two old friends sit about and talk BS, Beatles stuff, on a track-by-track basis, pretty much for the sake of it. My name is JT McQuarrie, and I'm here with my co-host Andrew Deacon. Say hi, Andrew.
Well, hello. Welcome to a changed world.
Yes, it is a changed world, because for once, we are not recording across the internet, but we are actually in person, in a room, together, face to face.
Wow, that sounded like you were really testing your levels there. That was full of energy.
Yeah, it won't last.
No, that was particularly kind of I want to check to make sure the neighbours are awake. Yeah, we're in the den, looking out over the green of the city. Are they allowed to know what city you're in?
You can tell them what city I'm in.
Okay, they're in the green place in Scotland. Is that what Glasgow translates as?
Dear Green Place.
Dear Green Place, yeah, absolutely. So suitable background of lovely tenement buildings and Doctor Who DVDs. But that's okay. But it's changed in more ways than one. We are recording on Saturday, July 6th. So it's a day of massive change because whilst we're up here in Glasgow, down in London, all sorts of changes taking place because it's the live recording of the final ever Egg Pod episodes. You thought I was going somewhere else with that, didn't you?
Well, it's a very final recording of Egg Pod, which we are pointedly not having anything to do with.
No, I know, but it's worth pointing out that if we weren't here, then actually, in fairness, we might not have gone to that anyway. But I look forward to listening to it. That will be an odd thing no longer to have in the world. And of course, we're also recording this at a time that although we've got some episodes in the bank, we haven't actually posted them yet. So, which also feels a little bit weird. So the chances are you're not going to hear this until September. Anyway, happy September, everyone. How's Keir Starmer doing? Because that's the other thing, because 14 years of hurt, as the Daily Mirror put it a couple of days before the election, football fans, is over. We are a Tory-free government for the first time since 2010.
Feels nice, doesn't it?
Well, the weather's good.
Well,
and there's an element of hope in the air. And if not hope, then at least there's some people going around going, get in, which is quite nice, or get out, actually, in some cases. Yeah. But in terms of the music world, of course, last weekend was Glastonbury. Did you manage to watch any of it?
No, not a bloody thing.
No. Do you ever watch?
Sometimes. I did watch McQuarrie's Glastonbury performance, and if there's somebody particularly interesting, I'll drop in on it, but I don't tend to randomly watch it.
No, I used to, but then, or occasionally sort of drop in.
Have you been to Glastonbury?
No. Although actually, where I live now is probably about as close as I'm going to get. Well, I say it's the other side of just over the border into Somerset. So, it's not that far, and there are people that I work with who live not far from it who actually get the opportunity to buy, because they're local residents within a certain postcode, they get to buy day tickets. So, the person I sit next to at work goes on the Sunday every year, takes the family and has a great time. It doesn't really bother him who's on, which I think is kind of the idea. I think if you're one of those people who looks at, obviously you have to buy the tickets probably before you know who's in it anyway. But, if you're sort of waiting for your particular type of music, then, you're probably going to be one of those people that complains when think, oh no, someone new is on the main stage. Oh dear. Life hasn't stayed the same as it once was. Although, that said, the one bit that I have dipped into and have a look at was, oh my word, the world has gone back to how it was in 1984. Because Paul Heaton, I do like Paul Heaton.
I did see that, yeah.
Yeah, Norman Cook for Happy Hour.
Which was lovely, yeah.
And that has made me revisit London Nil Hole 4, which was one of the first albums I really fell in love with, because I remember getting that for Christmas when I was a wee I'm not going to do the Scottish accent just because when I was but a rising, what would have been about 12 years, something like that, and absolutely loved it. And I'm sure I've said on here before as well that reading the liner notes and seeing them say, was it take Marx, take Jesus, take hope? And I thought, ooh, okay, I've tried this Jesus bloke. Who's Marx? So that was a sort of really kind of formative thing. And there's a link as well, because some of Paul Heaton's lyrics on that album could potentially have strayed towards teenage angst poetry, particularly a song called Flag Day. It's a waste of time, if you know what they mean, to try shaking a box in front of the Queen because her purse is full and it's bursting at the seams. It's a waste of time, if you know what I mean. Which is, even now, that has had an impact on me, and I can just reel that off. But actually, it's a little bit better than teenage poetry because there's genuinely some hurt and feeling in it. So it was nice to see the two of them up there again, and it was really nice to see Norman Cook play the bass again, because he's pretty good at it.
Yeah,
and that is a hard bass line to play, Happy Hour, as well, because that's a really kind of funky up-tempo song, and the bass drives it. So that was good to see. That was good to see. Now, while we're here in person, I have to admit that I'm surrounded by your many, many books, and there are some Beatles books. And if the sound just dipped, then it's because I turned away from the mic in order to, no point, you can't see it, point at the bookshelves, because I'm going to add to your collection, and I've got two that I picked up in a second-hand bookshop in Silver City, New Mexico, a while ago, which I think I may have mentioned, that I'm gifting to you.
Oh.
And they're awful, but they're
That
worth,
is not the point.
but they're worth reading. Firstly, I give you The Beatles: Yesterday, Today, Tomorrow by Rochelle Larkin, published in 1840 by the looks of it, 1974, which is very, very interesting, but worth a look. But even better than that is the Beatles. I'm going to call it a comic book.
Yeah.
Real sort of simplistic look at it, which I think finishes. Don't think it goes all the way through. I can't remember. It's that embarrassing. It didn't get to the end. And readers, if you've actually listened to any of these before, there was one episode. Oh, it does go up to the end. But each of the Beatles began working apart from the group. My album's doing well, and so is my song, Give Peace a Chance. I'm writing too. All Things Must Pass is doing all right. And Ringo says, I may not have my own records, but I act in movies. And that's basically how they decide that it's all going to come to an end. Because this actually has quiz questions at the end as well, just to check your reading. So were you paying attention? So what was the name of the recording company started by the Beatles? A, The Magical Mystery Tour. B, Abbey Road. C, EMI. D, Apple Corps Limited. We'll give you the answer at the end of the episode, if we remember. So have some fun with that.
Well, thank you. That's incredibly kind.
No.
Really appreciate it.
It's it's not that kind.
That's a spectacular picture of Paul McCartney in the cover. I'm assuming that's what that is.
It's good fun. I couldn't understand why anyone would want to give those away. But
excellent. Well, I can only express my gratitude that you have. Thank you.
So hey,
well, thank you.
You've got to give your books away. Oh.
Yes, I suppose we should shimmy vaguely in the direction of the song that we're supposed to.
Yeah.
This episode, which yes is You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. Do you?
Oh, I mean, it's a standard, isn't it? It's a classic. It's like this, and then Norwegian Wood. It's John Lennon at his most poetic and thoughtful, and isn't he just so deep and wonderful? That's the opinion you're meant to have, isn't it?
I think that's the received opinion. Yeah, I think that's the standard approach.
Are you allowed to express any kind of?
No, I don't think you're allowed to dissent from it, unfortunately.
Okay.
I think it's, excuse the pun, a capital offence.
Okay, capital offence. Oh, good. Right. Okay. Good. Don't. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So. Okay.
Come on, give it to us straight.
It's. I'm going to use that expression I use quite a lot. It's perfectly fine, isn't it? It's nice. it is a step forward. There are some things on this that are at this point, either a return to something good or new or unique. Obviously, there'll be things that they'll carry on taking forward. So the fact that you get, for example, a non-Beatle playing on it is really interesting. You've finally got them an instrument being included that either they or George Martin can't play. So there's that kind of broadening out of things. It's quite simple, but really well done. We can mention the acoustic side of it. That's all well and good. Trying to write something a little bit more Dylanesque and all of that. I just think that what sometimes seems to get overlooked is the fact that it's okay. It's okay. It's not absolutely amazingly wonderful, because it is just John Lennon going on about, again, not being able to be loved by the person who should be loving him. And except just because we've got we don't really have metaphors in it, because we've got some different words being used, and we're sort of doing some chopping up of the lines and having a slightly different sentence structure. Suddenly he's now sued.
Yeah, it's I think fine is also a fair description of it, though. I don't want to just fall back on the saying the same things that you did, but also, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I think it's interesting that it's a song that has gathered that kind of reputation. I think it's the third song on the album. It's after the 1-2 punch of Help and The Night Before. Helps to pace the album. That's quite nice, and it's clearly reaching for something with a bit more depth than The Night Before.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's understandable, but particularly when it comes to Lennon's lyrics, where we always have to tread just that little bit more carefully than sometimes because of the outsized reputation. I think it's easy to slightly overblow this one. It's a good song. I don't want to make it sound like I'm down on this song. I'm absolutely not. I think it's a very well constructed piece of music.
Yeah.
And that kind of sounds like I'm damning with faint praise. I'm really not. But it's not, I don't know, pick a Dylan song, whatever, I don't know, Rainy Day Women, or Like a Rolling Stone, or Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands, or whatever. It's not in that kind of league. It's clearly influenced by something, but I'm not sure it ever quite manages to get beyond that.
So I think we're obviously listening to it, and occasionally I get into this sort of territory, pop culture sort of side of it. We're obviously able to listen to it out of sequence, and we have heard every other song that the Beatles have heard, and now we're going back, have played rather, and now we're going back and we're able to judge this up against I don't know, Julia, for example, and just to sort of pick a Lennon acoustic. I was going to go across the universe, but but
it's a conversation for the 2030s.
Yeah, I know, and so you can look at that and go, well, that does not equal that, and therefore it's not. But you could also then look at it in a sense of, well, actually, an awful lot of people who would not have heard Bob Dylan might have listened to this and gone, oh wow, okay, that's interesting. So it could well have caused that sort of sense of, this is interesting, this is different, this is new, or this is interesting, this is different, this is new for the Beatles, this is a departure again, and therefore has that kind of positive impact on them. People then have a positive emotional response to it. I mean, what's interesting is again, Lennon's own words when he's asked about it in the Playboy interview. All he says is, "That's me in my Dylan period again. I am like a chameleon, influenced by whatever is going on. If Elvis can do it, I can do it. If the Everly Brothers can do it, me and Paul can. Same with Dylan. So what he's not even saying, he's not even trying to say, it's a particularly good and interesting thing. He does talk in other places about his approach to lyric writing and all of that sort of thing. You know, he's not sort of picking out as he does with some others, say, oh yeah, that's a really good Paul song, or that's one of my good ones. Oh yeah, I remember this, and this. He's just saying, well, I was trying to not trying to rip off Dylan. I was trying to do something with regards to Dylan, obviously, just, you know, not just lyrics, but also the music. And you could see it is influenced by it. But then, you know, again, that's where I think we need to sort of think about Lennon as being someone who soaks up influences and then puts out his own version of them. And he does it pretty well, but not necessarily as well as the original. Take his humour, for example. His humour, especially with the kind of like spoonerisms, the mixing up of the words and all that sort of thing, is very much influenced by the likes of Spike Milligan. But then Spike Milligan had been doing it for years and years and years and kind of like honed his skill at it and was a comedian. Lennon comes along, does it for a bit, gets stuck into it, kind of drops it after a while as well. And when he does it, it's okay. It's okay. But then he moves on to something else. It's kind of the same with this. He'll do a few of these Dylan type songs and then he'll get a bit bored and then he'll go off and do something else, which is fine. Some of these parodies he'll do a lot better than perhaps he's doing of Dylan. Parody is the wrong word, but some of these things he's influenced by, he will do them so much better than some of the original sources. Here, well, Dylan's a bit of a genius, but I think one of the problems, one of the reasons why it doesn't stand up to Dylan is actually connected to how it was recorded. Single track vocal. It's Lennon's first single track vocal for ages. You know, he got into the double tracking and thought, yes, it's great because he was so defensive about his own voice. Here it's single tracked and it is clear and it's crystal clear. As a result, you can hear all the words. And that's not good. With Dylan, he sings so fast at times and with his accent as well, and the way that he sings it, you have to really work at knowing what the words are. And it doesn't really matter if you don't catch everything because you get the tone of the song. Here, you can hear every word. And as a result, I don't think that it holds up quite as well as Dylan.
No, it probably doesn't. When it comes to the way that the song is constructed as well, it's basically two verses, two choruses, and that's your lot. It's a typical folk structure. It's very flat. It's fine for what it is. But I definitely think there is a lot to what you're saying about the way that Lennon soaks up influences. A lot of what comes through on this song feels like is regurgitation too strong? Maybe that's too strong a word for it. But yeah, he's regurgitating stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it will eventually get to the point where he doesn't. Like you mentioned, Julia. That's a great example because Julia is it's a great song, but it's also the sort of song that this song is a step on the way to. Julia is a much better song than You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. Of course, he's had years, to refine what he's doing and get better at it. It stops being a Dylan pastiche or a Dylan copy, and it starts being something which is uniquely John Lennon. Nobody else could have written Julia. And that journey is interesting to observe, but something like You've Got to Hide Your Love Away is the start of that journey, not the end of that journey. And so, yeah, you're right. Some of the lyrics are a little bit hit and miss here and there, but that's fine. It's going down that path. And there are other innovations which are going on. There isn't another Beatles song that sounds like this up to this point.
Yeah.
You've got the flute solo, which also sort of prefigures, California Dreaming by Mamas and Papas by a couple of months. So, again, they're out ahead, if not by much, but they still get out ahead. There's still that that searching, that questing for a lot of new material. But yeah, it's kind of the start of a particular, maybe the second kind of phase. We've talked a little bit about that before with Lennon, but it's that progression that makes it kind of interesting to go back to this stuff. But the first one isn't always the best.
Yeah. I do think that Julia becomes even more apposite because, it's that half of what I say is meaningless, but I say it just to please you, Julia. And of course, there will be plenty of people who will take that in different ways. Yes, he's talking about his mother, but also could he not be talking about his interviews? Could he not be talking about his lyrics in the early days, for example? So, because he published and therefore took himself a bit more seriously in terms of his writing, there's always that room for people applying meaning where there isn't meaning, just like with the "you've got to hide your love away." Now, it makes it fairly clear in terms of the narrative, and he's a big believer in narrative in songs, that there is development and, personal. That people say to me, "Hey, you've got to hide your love away." So it's like the character in the song. But of course, is he talking about, is he dampening down emotions? Is there some deep and personal meaning in it? To know, it's quite a nice line. Yeah, you've got to hide your love away. I mean, it works. It's quite clever,
and it's open to a multiplicity of interpretations.
Yeah,
and that helps. It's not it's not specific, and that's another way that we kind of, I think, see a development in the way that Lennon is writing, even if that is something that he's drawing directly from Dylan. That kind of, like, it's not, "Oh, she's left me," and, these kind of songs where there really isn't necessarily a lot of room for interpretation. And, of course, like, Tom Robinson thinks it's about, homosexuality and all that kind of stuff.
Are we even going there with that?
Not really, because it's clearly bollocks. I'm saying that as myself, but it's, it's just not about that. But, that's fine. Death of the author, it doesn't need to be intentional, blah, blah, blah. It's a valid interpretation, etc., etc. But that's the point. Like up till this point, there hasn't really been much in what Lennon's written that allows for that breadth of interpretation. So that alone does make this, song worth spending some time with.
Dear listener, if there's a slightly aggrieved tone in my voice now, it's because he managed to get to Roland Barthes before I did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I wasn't trying to preempt
okay, no, it's fine. It's fine. So just as I mean, I know you've sort of touched on the flute solo, but we'll come back to that in a bit, because it is worth. We've gone about it from the lyrical side. And bits to do with the recording. I think there's some more interesting things about the instrumentation and, various bits about that. But I mean, just to sort of to follow up on that, there is a definite attempt to write something a bit more sophisticated. It's the difference between, I've picked out a couple of examples, "Not a second time." You made me cry. I see no use in wondering why. I cried for you, yeah, and now you've changed your mind. I see no reason to change mine. And it's fine. It's perfectly perfunctory. It fits the song. It works okay, but it's very, very straightforward. And then "I'll cry instead," for example. "I've got every reason on earth to be mad, because I just lost the only girl I had. If I could get my way, I'd get myself locked up today, but I can't, so I'll cry instead." And, there's that bit that's either bad or attempt at being humorous. "I've got a chip on my shoulder that's as big as my feet. I can't talk to the people that I meet. If I could see you now, I'd try to make you sad somehow, but I can't, so I'll cry instead." So in terms of evolutionary scale, we're still very much down. I mean, are we even around Homo erectus? I don't know. But I think we're out of the water, but we're not necessarily evolved into upright walking by that stage. So from here, the fact that we've got "Here I stand, head in hand, turn my face to the wall. If she's gone, I can't go on, feeling 2 foot small." So we have at least progressed onto a 4-line stanza, of which B are rhyming, but yeah, it's A B C B. You know, we're not rhyming couplets all the way through, and it makes a difference. So it does sound a little bit more like he's trying hard. And that's fine. And there is the stories in there about, you know, feeling 2 foot small, you know, was, you know, it was an accident. It was originally feeling 2 foot tall, but sang it, yeah, and sang small, and it worked. And it's fine. And there is a difference in the lyrics here between, you know, being a bit kind of stark and empty and therefore perhaps devoid of emotion, and the earlier ones where it's almost sort of cliched caricature, dare I say, you know, the kind of lyrics that you might find being written by Stock Aitken and Waterman in the 80s into the early 90s, that kind of cliched pop. So, you know, it is a step forward, but just because it's gather round all you clowns, let me hear you say, doesn't necessarily make it good.
That's the line for me that shows the weakness of the lyric. I really dislike that line. There's something about it that just rings so hollow in the song. I kind of also want to mention No Reply here as well, because No Reply is a really good narrative song. And this song does have its narrative. You know, you mentioned it earlier on. And I think it's interesting that that's a thread that he's kind of picking up and running with at this stage. I think No Reply might be a slightly better narrative song than You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, but it's definitely playing in the same field. And the way that Lennon is able to, you know, construct that narrative with fairly efficiently, I would say. You know, he's not using a lot of words to build a scenario. And it's maybe not as... There's something like kitchen sink drama about No Reply, which there isn't about You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. But yeah, they're very much in the same territory, and it's interesting to see him carry through and try and do something different. But there is odd weaknesses in this lyric, and that, for me, that gather round all you clowns, that just doesn't ring. It feels like such a false note. Whereas the narrative of No Reply is probably it's certainly a stronger narrative, but I think it's a stronger lyric as well. Even if it's using a more simplistic kind of rhyming structure, it's kind of doing the same thing. So it's just interesting to see these different threads being pulled on, and kind of seeing him push against the walls of what he can achieve for himself, and sort of how far they'll move.
He does, in the Playboy interview, talk quite a lot about lyric writing, and I don't have my finger on the page reference now. You may be able to hear me leafing through some pages in the background, sound effects fans. But he does talk about the fact he likes to write. He prefers to write about things that happen to him and his emotions, but he also prefers to have something of a narrative element. But, you know, he acknowledges the fact that in the early days, lyrics didn't really count as long as we had some vague theme. She loves you, he loves her, and they love each other. It was the hook and the line and the sound we were going for. He says, that's still my attitude, but I can't leave lyrics alone. I have to make them make sense apart from the song. Which is fine. I mean, it sort of does. And it's okay. And I think it's 20 times better than the lyrics for Norwegian Wood, which is something we'll come on to at some point in the future, because there's a song that has an unearned reputation.
Watch this space, or at the very least, listen to it.
Yeah, indeed. But so it's acoustic.
Yeah,
Boom.
yeah.
Yay, get in. That's a nice variation. And I think on the album as well, after the opening two that we've had, it's a nice change of pace. It's something a little bit different. And of course, it doesn't quite give you the opportunity to say, oh, Ringo's doing some really good work here.
No, I can't really claim that in this song.
But the work that he does is perfectly fine. It's just there's not much of it.
No. Well, it's that thing. It's playing the right thing in the song. Like the song doesn't need anything more than little cymbal clashes.
There you go.
That's fine. That's all the song needs. That's all the song's got.
Yeah.
And so it's appropriate, if not exactly what one would call technically accomplished.
Well, I think the way he does it is, and the space between is perfect. It means that when it does come in on the beat, it's absolutely at the right time, and it works to help the song develop, and that's fine. I think it's quite brave to do something acoustic at this point when your reputation is for a rock and or roll, especially bearing in mind that Dylan's original reputation was for acoustic. And boy, was there a fuss when he went to rock and or roll initially.
Can't say I've ever heard about
from the folk crowd. Obviously, he then gained a rock audience, and an awful lot of people just sort of thought, oh yeah, actually this is better. We quite like this.
It's about this time it happens, isn't it?
Oh, I can't remember. I can't remember the exact date. I mean, my memory from the 60s is a little bit hazy, due to something else. But the simplicity of the song, I think, allied to the simplicity of the arrangement, the playing, puts the emphasis, on the lyrics. The lyrics are perfectly okay. It works, I guess. And then you get an unusual closing to the song as well. I don't know how often pop songs at this point would have ended with a flute solo.
Not often. I'm going to go ahead and say.
Yeah, I know you've referenced the Mamas and the Papas, but yeah, it feels like it's a case of, well, let's try this. This is a bit of a risk. It may well be that they've heard someone else do it and thought, well, we could do that, but we could do it better, which is very much a Beatles thing. In which case, great, absolutely fantastic decision. And it really works. And maybe this was then the incentive to try it again with a bunch of other people slightly further down the line. Noticeable, of course, that it was a case of, did you remember the guy's name? Did you read that? Let's call him Ian Guy. It was his arrangement. So, I mean, we've got a copy of Revolution in the Head literally on the desk here. If we could only be bothered to open it up.
John Scott was the name of the person.
Thank you, John Scott.
Tenor and alto flutes.
Ian Guy's not that far away, really, is it? It's not. Okay.
Not Scotty.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, right, here you go. Let's do an arrangement. Which then at some point it kind of leads you to that old dilemma about, does that not potentially technically make him an author of part of the song?
I mean, legally, the answer to that question is no.
But it's an interesting idea because a lot of these, they're getting experts in instruments in that they don't know about and saying, here you go, here's the song, play something for it. And at that point you get into the, appropriate for where we are, case history, the Bluebells, and that damn violin. Would it have been the same song without that damn violin? No, it wouldn't. That's why that damn violin player got some damn money for his damn violin playing.
And yet Rourke and Joyce got nothing.
Well, I didn't quite get nothing.
Well, but, they didn't get songwriting.
And what's that Pink Floyd song? Without any words on, but the backing vocalist.
Great Gig in the Sky.
Yeah, who finally I think managed to get some money for that because that was the song effectively. Which interesting, funnily enough, walking along, I think Argyle Street yesterday, Friday, there was a busker on there who was playing something off Dark Side of the Moon.
Really?
So I thought, that's a bit brave. Just
better quality buskers in Glasgow.
Well,
afterwards,
yeah. So I mean, it's just a thought, isn't it? Because you could then apply that to any solo that George ever wrote. And I have admiration for bands who just say, "Oh, we'll just split it," which means yes, I have admiration for you too.
Well, I like you as well. Sorry, couldn't resist. It's also interesting that they've chosen to put this experiment front and centre. This isn't a buried album track, it's on the movie. And so it's not an experiment that they've just gone, well, like, we'll give it a shot, but yeah, maybe we don't want to really like highlight it. I mean, yesterday's buried inside too, so it's not foregrounded in the same way that this kind of thing.
But then yesterday wasn't in the film, and everything on side one was in the film.
Well, yeah, but exactly. But that's exactly what I mean. Like this song could have been buried. It could have been buried in the same way that yesterday was, and another song slotted in. But they brought it up front. Like this is a very new thing for the band to try, and they're putting it like center stage.
But then, I mean, this is a genuine question. This isn't. I mean, I'm not trying to push back on that at all. I get the feeling that they were asked to produce some songs for the film. Go, here are our songs for the film, and then Richard Lester goes, yeah, we'll have that, and that, because those were the ones that were recorded. Then built the film around those. Did Yesterday not come, for example, a little bit later in the recording of the album?
I think it did, but I'm not sure about the film script being constructed around the songs that existed. I just used Yesterday as a random example. I don't.
No. I know what you mean. Movie, but it was. I think it was very much the case with certainly with Hard Day's Night as well, where it's a case of we'll use that and we'll use that and we'll use that. So I'd be interested maybe when we talk about the album and the film specifically, it'd be worth sort of checking on, were these the songs that were written and were available, and were these ones for the second side of the album, were they effectively written and recorded whilst filming was already underway and the script had already been, nailed down? And by nailed down, I mean it should have been buried and possibly even burned, and then that way it may never have got. So I think some of the bravery in that sense may not actually have been theirs.
That's also possible.
Now, having mentioned the film, it is a pretty good filmed version of the song. I mean, when we talked about Hard Day's Night, I particularly spoke about how I really enjoyed a lot of the filmed musical sequences. They're really good. I think they're slightly less good in Help, primarily because the Salisbury Plain is just terrible. More of that last episode and next episode. Really not very good. But this is pretty good. It's inside the shared house. Yeah. I think John strumming away doing his thing is great. Ringo in his sunken bed, not overdoing it. Tapping away at the tambourine works really well, and the shots of John foregrounded, Paul in the background, kind of overdoing it a bit, with Ringo in between. I think are really, really effective. I think Paul is mugging a bit for the camera. But then not exactly the greatest actor in the world, is he?
No.
He wasn't even the greatest actor in the Beatles. Hey! Oh, dear. Anyway, but it's the bit with George that I don't get. George sitting on the sofa, looking as though he's desperately trying to get Eleanor Bron's attention. And that's the bit I'm not quite sure about, with the occasional added bit of Leo McKern sticking his head out of a drain outside.
It's difficult to remember the actors of the caliber of Leo McKern and Eleanor Bronner in this thing.
I'm not a huge science fiction fan, but Leo McKern's in one of my favourite I think he was a star in one of my favourite science fiction films ever, which I think is was it The Day the Earth Caught Fire?
Yeah.
Basically, and it's kind of about global warming as well. The temperature is rising, and he's a journalist on a Fleet Street newspaper and trying to get people to take it seriously. It's a really good film.
It's a great film.
And he's got acting chops, and then also he dressed up as a mystical person from. Anyway, let's not.
Yeah, let's
not get into that, because he was a gigging actor. But that's the bit with Eleanor Bron. It's just don't quite get. They're trying to make it out like there's some sort of mad infatuation thing going on there, whilst at the same time still trying to progress the narrative of the film slightly in the background.
The film has a narrative?
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. If you then look at the film sequences from A Hard Day's Night, there are times when there's sort of little bits of it in. Obviously, Can't Buy Me Love, they're all outside. Oh, look at us, we're running around mad because of the stresses of filming. But some of them are just straight recordings of the songs and are beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
I just wish they'd done a bit more of that here. They've just sort of taken the George on the sofa with Eleanor Bron out of it and just have him on the sofa just playing, and some interesting shots then of the four of them, and then in twos and threes, and it could have been something for the ages.
Well, let's keep our powder dry and help. We still have to have a whole discussion about that film at some point.
No, we don't.
Yeah, but we're going to. So just face up to reality. It's going to happen. Good. Well, that sounds like a contentious note to end the episode on. Is there anything else you want to discuss about this?
Well, there is. I do want to get you to pick a number between 1 and 100. Sorry, let me give you some context.
Okay.
You've got to Hide Your Love Away made the Rolling Stones top 100 Beatles tracks, and I want you to pick a number between 1 and 100 where you think You've Got to Hide Your Love Away actually appears
in the top 100 Beatles. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still going to go with 47. Something mid-tier, I would think.
31.
Yeah, it wasn't miles off, but I wasn't exactly on the money.
Yeah,
there. Okay.
Well, okay.
That's
it's
wrong,
it is wrong.
Wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, yeah, all artistic appreciation is subjective, but also some things are just wrong.
Yeah.
Like that.
But it does become a song of note though, because the notable cover version is Silky, produced by John. Paul appears on it. I think George may have done something on it as well. So it's got that notable involvement, and
it's a very widely covered song. A lot of people have recorded this song.
Yeah, as there's an Oasis cover which is hilarious because the flute is done with Noel Gallagher
singing the line.
Yeah, mumbling along. Which is quite funny. I think actually predictable. No flute, just Noel humming. Which is fine. And there's
almost all these cover versions are predictable. There's very little variety across them.
Well, if you want to hear predictable cover, then go for we've mentioned this before on this, the Beach Boys Party album from 1965. But it is both predictable because it's just a straightforward cover, but also in a Beach Boys style, i.e. ineffective.
Yes. There's a Dylan cover on that album as well.
Hang on, can we just get the language right here?
Yeah.
The Beach Boys did a Dylan cover.
Yes.
Rather than there's a Dylan cover of You've Got to Hide Your Love Away.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Which,
very important clarification.
Okay, all right.
There is also a Dylan song on that album.
Because Dylan doing a cover of this would be a circularity that would end all life.
Yeah, I think that might set the universe.
Yeah.
Some kind of special collapse.
Yeah. So nice song. Nice song. It's a sign of growth, and development and all of that. But it ain't the promised land, folks. Come on, get over yourselves.
Well, then, if it isn't the promised land, what numerical value is it?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to score it reasonably well for me, and I'm either going to flip between a 6 and a 7, but I don't have access to the spreadsheet. Do you?
Yeah, spreadsheet's right here.
Give me an example of something I've given a 6 and something I've given a 7 to.
You gave a 6 to The Night Before, Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby, What You're Doing, I Don't Want to Spoil the Party, 8 Days a Week, Kansas City, hey, 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 hey.
That sounds like I really need to go back and put some of those down to a 5.
Yeah.
Okay, in which case, and on that basis, it's going to have to be a 7.
Okay, fair enough. The last 7 you gave was for I Feel Fine.
Yeah, well, again, it's just showing what a completely useless scoring system this is.
Thank you very much. I'm also going to give it a 7, so that makes life nice and easy.
Right. Say some words while I go on my phone and check the internet.
Okay, sure. You can really get a hold of us. We exist. We are a thing. You can contact us by email. We are BeatlesStuffology@gmail.com. We are on Twitter at Beatles_ology, and we are BeatlesStuffology on Instagram. You can find my blog at www.jgmcquarrie.scot. Please like, rate, and review us on whatever podcatcher you are using, so that more people can find the show. Next episode, we carry on through the album, of course, with I Need You. But until then, keep listening.